Life Stories.
We always hear speaking about God. We always mention God. But when I was born, it was year 95, 1995, and when I was 5 years old, my grandfather died, and not father and mother to care about me, but my grandfather and my grandmother, because my father was working, he was working in Ukraine, he was always far away, and had not much fellowship or not much contact with my father. And then my father also was involved in the work heavily, so that my grandparents were taking care about me. I was right up by them.
Можно так сказать, что всегда
And I can tell you, I always heard that God is good, that God is existing, but in my life, it happened that I couldn't see how good He's God. So, but I had a good relationship with my grandfather and grandmother. That my grandfather, he was very strict to me, and I was always kind of like fighting with him. And when I was 10 years old, I was involved in the bad company, the really bad company. All my friends, they were older than me, for 5 or 6 years older than me at that time. And what they did, I was taking example from them. They were smoking, I was following their example. They were using alcohol drinks, so I also used. And when my mother once saw it, she was very frightened by it. And then I was sent to the football trainings. I was involved in the football, playing football. I like this sport. So everything was bad in my life. And when I was 15 years old, first time I was invited in one company with my friends to use marijuana. And yeah, this was kind of not strong, it was weak, not drugs, but anyway, it was just first steps. And then I was 14 years old. My father came back from Ukraine. He was working there in Ukraine, but he came back. He saw what kind of life I was involved, but he didn't really care about it. But honestly saying, when I was 14 years old, I actually got sick and tired of this alcohol drinking or all this bad company. I wanted really my life to be changed. But I couldn't make it. I couldn't change it myself because I was involved in the circle of my friends were a very bad company. I couldn't break through. I was willing to do it, but I couldn't. And then the most important thing I wanted to say, I was always hearing about God. Somebody always was telling about God around me. And I was praying, making namaz, very lots of prayers, and then there was always silence. Nobody answered me. God didn't answer me. Nothing happened. Let's say. And when I came 14, my father was involved in the car accident.
В правой стороне там сидел человек, и этот человек умер.
And because he was the one who was to blame for this car accident, the other person died. And so it happened because he was blamed for it, he was tried, and then he was sent for prison. He was given 7 years term in prison.
רבותיי,
So he had to do, he had to work because father was always working. And besides me, I have up two other brothers. One is older than me, 2 years older than me. Another one is younger. And then we were just, so we were forced to do some job to make a living. So when my father was in prison, so I got much doors open. So I mean, in the wrong way, because my friends that they were released from the prison, they were out of having fellowship with us, and so we were wrong. They were out of some friends who are friends with my father, and then they came out of this prison. They were giving us a call. We had some fellowship, so we got that.
Situația în lecție, mine уже вся цель, ну, вся книга марихуаны и от алкоголя меня все болит.
So starting from the marijuana, from the alcohol drinking, and I was involved in all this Mexican company. But the next thing was I was still praying. I was asking like this, God, if you are real, why am I living in such a life? Please help me, because I want my life to be changed. I never was praying in such a way, but nothing happened. Nothing still happened in my life.
Уже Бог нету.
And then I decided, no, God is not real, and actually I was changing to be atheist myself, because I could not get answers to my prayers.
Now, I could never in a million years picture her doing these things, but these were things that were just ingrained in me because it was all I ever knew. And so my mum, again, in the background of this, was just broken. She was looking for love in all of the wrong places. The issue with my mum is that she just wanted somebody to love her and help her boys. And, she would quite often end up with people that seemed to want to help her boys and seemed to want to love her. But us boys would be so much chaos. There'd be so much police come into the house that they would end up either getting aggressive with my mum, or they would fall out, or my mum would end up breaking up with them, and then we would end up homeless and we would end up on the streets. And so I think by the time I was 10 years of age, I must have moved into about at least 15 houses. I never had a stable home. And so here I am, 10 years of age, looking at being homeless. My mum's boyfriend was abusive at this point, and this was the second relationship I can remember her being abused in. My brothers at this point were in and out of prison. They were committing crimes. My one brother moved away. And life was just chaos for me. I was left to my own devices with what I only knew. And what I knew was crime. What I knew was drugs. And my mum couldn't control me. And so my mum decided, right, we need to uproot. We need to move somewhere else. We need to try again. We need to start again. And so we moved 400 miles up the country. And so we moved from Pembrokeshire up to a place in mid Wales called Chepstow. And so we lived in Chepstow, which is quite a nice area. And we thought actually things might turn out all right here. But along the way while we were there, I ended up contracting meningitis, which almost took my life. I spent weeks in hospital. My mum, again, still broken, could barely look after herself properly, let alone look after his boys. My other brother was borderline psychologically affected by all the acid and magic mushrooms he had taken. My other brother, James, was serving a big prison sentence for GBH. And so we were just in a really bad place with no support. We didn't even know if you could get support at this point. And so I come out of hospital after surviving meningitis. And I think it was at that point where I kind of looked at my life and thought, I need to make the most of my life, but not in a good way. I need to live my life as much as I can and get as much out of my system as I can, because I'm not promised tomorrow. And so for me, instead of taking it on a positive step and saying, okay, I'm not promised tomorrow I'll start doing good things, I looked at it like, I'm not promised tomorrow I'm going to get what I need out of my system. And so I began to take more drugs. I can remember finishing school. I just joined comprehensive school, 13 years of age. And I met a friend. His name was Reese. We called him Skinny, but well, because he was skinny. And then we had another friend who was Mark, who was fat, and we used to call him Fatty. So Skinny, Fatty, and me, we met up at the end of school, and we walked down to a friend's house, Bluey, and we asked Bluey for some ecstasy. And we knew that that weekend there was going to be a rave on in the middle of a field. And so we decided that we were going to get a few ecstasy tablets each. And this was the first time we were ever going to take them. We were going to meet up at this field where this rave was going, and we were going to take them together. So 13 years of age, soon as school finishes, we collect these ecstasy tablets and we go up to a place called the Rec. And I decide that I'm going to take these pills. I drop one of the pills with a glass of water. My mate Skinny drops a pill with a glass of water. And my other friend drops a pill with a glass of water, Fatty. And so at this point, we're just waiting. We're not really feeling anything. We're not really, as if nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden, boom, start to come up off the ecstasy. And as I start to come up off the ecstasy, all I see in the distance was police lights. And I heard police dogs barking as they came to raid the rave that we were at. There was a police helicopter in the air, and all my friends started to run in one direction. And as they were running in the one direction, I started to run in the other direction, but I was so off my face because of the drugs that I ran straight into a wall and knocked myself out. I was the only one to get arrested that night. And so I found myself in the back of a police car, looking in the rear view mirror with a cut on my head. And that night left a mark on my life. And when I say it left a mark on my life, I don't mean the cut on my head. I mean, this was the beginning of taking Class A drugs. This was the beginning of trying something that I actually could not control. And so I yearned for that same kind of buzz over and over and over again. And so for the years that followed, I got kicked out of comprehensive school where I hit the headmaster. I wouldn't turn up for home education. I had social services at the door. I was getting arrested for burglaries. I was getting arrested for thefts. My criminal record, my DBS, I've just had to send off for my DBS for a new job. And my DBS is 6 pages long. And when I say 6 pages long, the pages are like 2 A4 pages, back and front, full of criminal offences. And I don't say that pridefully. I say that because, God's grace is so good that he can forgive somebody like me. And so here we are, 13 years of age, taking ecstasy like nobody's business, smoking cannabis. My mum can't control me. My brothers are gone and not to be seen anywhere. In fact, my one brother, Simon, at this point had been sectioned. He had taken so much magic mushrooms that he believed the devil was trying to kill him. And right then, in that situation, I didn't think anything of it. But right now, I do believe that. I believe that he was in danger of not only losing his life, but losing his soul. And I've seen that destroy our family. It destroyed him. It destroyed my mum. It destroyed me. And that was probably the first time I really looked at drugs and thought, this probably isn't a good thing, but it wasn't enough to stop me. And so my brother came out of his psychiatric ward and he tried to live his life clean. My other brother was still in prison at this point, but I was still trying to make a name for myself. So I started selling drugs. I started picking up ecstasy tablets. I started picking up cocaine, and then it came crack, and then heroin, and then whatever I could make the most money out of. So 15 years of age, I'm selling crack and heroin for bigger dealers. I'm traveling up the country to Liverpool. I'm picking up big amounts of crack cocaine and heroin, and I'm bringing it back down, and I'm giving it to dealers, and we're sharing it out. And then I was basically a skivvy. I was running around with other people's big amounts of drugs and money, and I was handing it off because the blame had come to me. And so I did that for a while until I was 16, and I decided I was going to try the product. And so at this point was probably the most pivotal point to my criminal career that you could ever imagine. It was madness. So I'm sat on the back of a bus, a double-decker bus, on the way back from Liverpool with one of my friends, Jordan, and I decide I'm going to try the heroin. And so usually heroin is injected, or usually heroin is smoked on foil. I didn't have any of them, so I decided that I was going to sniff it. So I got a £20 note and I sniffed up the heroin, and it gave me a buzz and a feeling like I'd never had before. But the difference with this one is that I could not control it. I needed more. And every time, they call it chasing the dragon, because every one I had, I wanted more the next time. And every other one I had, I wanted more the next time, and the more the next time. And then I no longer became a drug dealer, but I became a drug user. And this was something that I said I would never be, is a heroin addict or a crack cocaine addict. They were seen as scum of the earth. And that was the sort of thing I never wanted to be, but that's the thing I became. And so I went home, and I was still living with my mum at this point. My oldest brother was still heavily into drugs, but living in North Wales. My other brother was doing okay at this point. He was, leading a normal-ish life. But my life changed from that moment onwards. I became what they call a prolific offender. That means I was so prolific with my offending that I had to be put on a specific register so I could be watched and monitored, so that I could be banned from town centres and city centres because of my criminal career. And so I couldn't go into towns, I couldn't go into cities that had banned me from them. So I started to do burglary. So I started to rob people's homes. And so the scale of addiction matched the scale of my crime. The bigger my addiction, the bigger the crimes. And so I can remember my first burglary. And this first burglary was when I was just coming up 20 years of age. At this point, I'd been in and out of prison, doing 1 month here, 2 months there, a few weeks here. I had done drug programs. I was on methadone script. I was 5 stone wet through. I was sick to my stomach. Absolutely sick to my stomach. My mum didn't want to know me anymore. She had gone into a women's aid refuge, and my other brothers were just completely off the scale, except for Simon, who was doing okay at this point. And my life was just chaos. It was really chaos. And I was living in a bed sit at the time. And so I was living in Newport in this bed sit, and my life had literally just come to the brink of where it couldn't get any worse. I was either going to end up dead or back in prison. And I went and committed a burglary. And so this specific burglary is the one that sticks with me for life, because this is the one that made me think about the rest of my life. So I'm 20 years of age, and I'm with one of my mates, Ginge, and we're walking back and forth past this chip shop, Kibby's Fish and Chip Shop. And we know that there's a drug dealer that lives just above the chip shop in a flat, but we also know that he's gone away for the weekend. So we decide that we're going to rob his flat. So we go round to the back of the flat, we go up on top of his shed, and there's a window latch slightly open. So we're trying to reach it, we can't reach it. So Ginge grabs me by the legs and he pulls me up towards the window. And I'm like, I can't reach. And he pushes me up, and I ended up getting in. I get through this window. I go through into the bedroom, and I pick up some jewelry. I go into the living room. There's nothing in the living room. And on my way back out, I look into the kitchen, and I got to remember is that I was really stoned. I'd been smoking cannabis all day, and I had the munchies. And I looked through into the kitchen, and there's something that I wanted my whole entire life just sat there on the kitchen worktop. And it was a Mars bar. I was hungry. I knew what I wanted. So I ran over to the kitchen counter, and I grabbed my chocolate bar. I grabbed the chocolate bar, I put it back in my pocket, and I went back to the window, and I looked down, and I seen Ginger on the shed, and he said, "Have you got the stuff?" And I said to him with a smile on my face, "Yes, I got the stuff," and showed him the Mars bar. To his dismay, he was like, beep, 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 get back in there, get the jewelry, get the drugs. I pulled the jewelry out and showed him what I had. It was a joke. And so I passed him the jewelry. We got down, and as we got down, he ran off with the jewelry because a neighbor came out with a torch. The neighbor came out with this torch, and he almost caught me. So I ran in the opposite direction, and I went home. Well, when I went home, the police were already waiting for me.
Life Stories.
So I decided God is not real, so God changed. I didn't see any changes in my life, so then I was 17. My godfather,
Adesso sta cercando
he was starting to attend the church, then he was attending the church. There was a time. we were doing all that things together. We were using marijuana together. We were drinking alcohol drinks, and we were doing all that things. The one day he came to me, he visited me, and he's telling my godfather, he's sharing me about the God. And I was telling him, it's good that your life has been changed. You're not drinking anymore. You're not smoking cigarettes. You're not swearing, using swearing words. But you see, I've been praying for a long time. God could help my change my life, but I still haven't got anything. I have no finances. I have not money. I have not good job, etc. I have nothing. I have no love, no apartment, no love of the parents. So I've never experienced this. And I was telling him, there's no God. Prove that if there is a God. If there is a God, why am I having such a life? Despite I'm praying. And then his godfather told
Да, что это все от Бога. Потому что мы люди
me, the
живем,
reason we have a bad life is not because God is not real, but it's the consequences of your acts. But I was counting myself as a Muslim, and so there's other people that also I did nothing about Protestant churches. I was thinking this is kind of a strange step. But I was just supposed to tell my godfather, you are going your way, I'm going my way. But such time came that my health was broken, my relationships were broken, I had no job to work, no future, I could really say so. I couldn't count on nothing. There was no emptiness and God's tunnel in front of me. So I was 17 years at that time. After having this conversation with my godfather, and then I saw the real changes. I was observing him for such time. I could see clearly those changes in his life. And then I was telling myself, God, I only want my life will be changed like this way. Because I was praying, and it couldn't happen in my case, but why it happened in my godfather's case? So, why so? And one day I was together with some of my friends to the birthday party, and we were smoking there, smoking marijuana, drinking alcohol, until the very in the morning. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. We went to the house to get some sleep, and while I was trying to lie asleep, I got such, all my body was shaking, my heart was kind of heavily jumping, beating. So I was very bad condition. My health was very bad condition. I was afraid that I could die even. Since I was sitting, but my heart was kind of pumping so much. I thought my heart would jump off to my mouth.
Да, я ощущал, как у меня сердце вот так.
So I was listening how my heart was so heavily beating. All my body was shaking at the same time. At this very moment I thought, God, if you are real, just help me that because I don't want to die in such circumstances. And then I lose my conscience, and then I came back to my senses. It was after 4 or 5 hours, I opened my eyes, I was still alive. I didn't die, and after this, I was thinking, yes, it should be God. But how to fight him, how to seek him. Then one day, again, after this, it was Sunday morning, my godfather was visiting me, and he told me, okay, let's assume you're sitting there while attending some set, but just visit that just for my reason, on my behalf. And so I promised him I would visit his church meeting. So I went to that meeting Sunday morning at the church, some church. It was an ordinary building, and while the ministry pastor was telling, if you're sick of something, if you have some pain in your body, just lie your hand over this place where you feel sick, and God will heal you. I didn't believe it at all, but I saw, and I heard that my grandfather also was saying some, like say, sorcery, so that, for example, that some young guys would not fall in love with some young girls, and such things, he did some kind of sorcery. And I was thinking that this is kind of similar sorcery, and I had no faith in this area at all, so that I could lie hand on my head, for example, and I would be healed. Not at all. But because I had this hangover, heavy.
Life Stories. Life Stories.